With the release of Godzilla Vs King Kong right around the corner, I wanted to get into the spirit and play some games relating to the two kings of kaiju. Kicking things off, I am reviewing Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. My god, what a long name. Yes, that is the official fucking name of the game. I'm just gonna call it King Kong the game. Anyway, as the name implies, King Kong the game is an adaptation of Peter Jackson's King Kong remake. As a quick aside, I really like Peter Jackson's Kong. It's a bit long, but it's really well made, and the special effects still hold up nicely for being a lot of CG. And it has my favorite design of the big monkey himself out of all the different versions. The game is more of a loose adaptation of the movie. Many specifics are changed, adding or taking away some events from the film. That said, they did get the actors from the movie to reprise their respective roles in the game, which was really cool.
Ann, come with me. I want to shoot some test shots.
Now? You want to start filming now?
Sure, why not? That's why we're here. We'll start with some screams. Okay, are you ready? And action. Scream, Ann! Scream for your life! Jack, get out of the way. You're in the shot.
The game came out in 2005. 2005 was such a great year for games. Holy crap. King Kong was released on basically every system available at the time. Game Boy Advance, PlayStation Portable, Nintendo DS, PS2, GameCube, Xbox, PC, and even the Xbox 360. For this review, I played the GameCube version. In my opinion, licensed games were at their peak during this era, both in terms of amount being made, but also quality as well. I know licensed games have developed a really bad reputation, but there were some really fun ones released around this time. So, how does King Kong the game hold up? Is it one of the better licensed games, or is it one that contributed to the perception that licensed games are shit? In a lot of ways, it was ahead of its time, and I feel aspects of it would be more appreciated now than it was at release. Before I get into that, let's break the game down a bit. As mentioned, the plot of King Kong the game follows the plot of Peter Jackson's movie of the same name. We start off with a cutscene explaining that Carl Denham, Ann Darrow, Jack Driscoll, and crew are adventuring to the mysterious Skull Island to make a film. You play as Jack Driscoll in the first person. Pretty early into the game, the story takes some detours from the movie in that you're attacked by monsters much earlier, and they have to fight off things like giant crabs. The game actually moves at a pretty fast pace, and I actually played the entire game in one sitting. You can finish it in about 6 hours, which, considering the movie it's based on is 3 hours, keeps pretty good pace for a video game adaptation. Graphically, the game is very impressive, especially for the GameCube, with realistic-looking environments and decent-looking character models. As mentioned, you play the game in first person. You can only hold one gun at a time. The guns themselves are fairly basic. You get a pistol, a shotgun, a Tommy gun, or a sniper rifle. Ammo is pretty scarce, and once you're out, you have to resort to using spears or sharp bones as your primary weapons. As a fan of boomer shooters and having played so much Doom in the last year, combat feels very slow and limiting. As I said, this game came out in 2005. This was the same year as Call of Duty 2, so shooters were starting to be made with consoles in mind, following the success and popularity of Halo and Medal of Honor. This game follows some of these tropes that would be popularized by modern military shooters being made around this time. Slow movement speed, slow reloading, regenerating health, scarce ammo, no jumping, etc. One interesting thing, though, about King Kong is the lack of HUD of any kind. You don't see objective markers, health, or even ammo. You don't even have an aiming reticle. As a result, the presentation is very cinematic in nature, attempting to give the illusion that you're not actually playing a game. In fact, in order to check ammo, Jack will actually announce how much ammo he has.
One magazine on backup.
All this adds up to what I meant by King Kong the game providing an experience that was ahead of its time. In this world of narrative-driven cinematic games with realistic graphics and attempts to craft an experience more akin to a movie than a game, King Kong would have fit right at home. As far as combat is concerned, you start off fighting crabs and giant centipedes and the like, eventually moving on to the island's natives and then finishing on big creatures like giant bats and dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are tough to defeat. You can't just fight bigger ones head-on. Instead, you need to sneak around and avoid intense combat, oftentimes finding a means to escape or baiting them away to clear an opening. In addition to combat, there is a small puzzle-solving element as well. Paths will be blocked by big, thorny bushes, and no, not Mrs. Kong's, and you need to find a way to burn them away and open a path to continue. Sometimes there will be running water, which will put out the torches, so you have to find a way to light these bushes aflame using other parts of the environment. I didn't really find any aspect of this game too difficult though, neither the bushfire segments nor the combat situations, and I didn't find myself dying very often. There are occasional scripted sequences as well, scenarios like needing to run away from dinosaurs or riding down rafts, as well as escort missions where you'll have to make sure the people in your group aren't killed. These escort missions are moderately annoying, as escort missions in general are, but I don't think these were the most obnoxious things, all considered. Now, while the majority of the game plays just like I described, the best parts of the game are where you take control of the monkey himself. That's right, you can play as King Kong, and it was definitely my favorite part of the game. Playing as Kong shifts to a fixed third-person camera, similar to that in God of War or Devil May Cry. The game becomes more of an action game as well, where you engage in hand-to-hand combat with other giant creatures that are trying to eat or hurt Anne. There are some very simple platforming mechanics here as well, as you run through the forest, swing on trees, and climb up viney walls. As expected, the combat is not nearly as complex as quote-unquote real action games. There aren't combos or unlocks or style meters or anything crazy like that. You get a simple punch, grab, the ability to utilize environmental weapons, and a Fury mode, which is entered by Kong beating his chest. While in this Fury mode, your attacks are more lethal and you have more defense. When an enemy is near death, you can perform brutal finishing attacks, things like breaking a T-Rex jaws or ripping off a bat's wings. These finishing moves are so satisfying, and make the combat more interesting and fun. I really wish there were more of these Kong segments in the game. Following the plot of the movie, eventually the film crew captures Kong and brings him off Skull Island and to New York City to show him off in a new live show.
Eyes have ever beheld. He was a king in the world he knew, but he comes to you now a captive. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
As we all know, Kong eventually escapes. The escape segment is actually pretty cool. You control Kong in this pseudo-open world city. I say pseudo because it's not really open world at all, but it gives the illusion of freedom in its scale. Here, you scale buildings and destroy military vehicles as you search for Anne and an escape. Eventually, you get to play the iconic Empire State Building segment from the movies, and as you attempt to fight off oncoming planes. As we all know, the story eventually ends tragically as Kong is killed and tumbles to the street below. King Kong the game is fairly basic, following pretty closely to the narrative and vision presented by Peter Jackson's version of King Kong. It doesn't really go out of its way to make itself feel gamey. That said, the game is still fun and worth playing if you're a fan of King Kong. To be honest, this more grounded approach works very well for King Kong. The Godzilla movies had environmental and anti-nuclear messages, but eventually became more focused on the kaiju battles, and Monster of the Week style movies where Godzilla faced off new, more dangerous threats. King Kong never really became known as a franchise with a focus on city destruction and kaiju battles like Godzilla did. Yes, there were a couple Japanese-made Kong productions which had battles with Kong vs. Godzilla, or Kong vs. Mechani-Kong, and the Skull Island and upcoming Godzilla vs. King Kong movies are certainly more action-focused, but the original King Kong and subsequent remakes, including Peter Jackson's version, were more about man's selfish ambition than the city destruction. King Kong was a franchise about taking an amazing creature away from where it belonged and bringing it to where it wasn't understood and then destroying it. The King Kong narrative is deep and cynical. It's critical of human ambition. Eventually, ambition catches up, leaving destruction in its wake. The famous line, "'Twas beauty killed the beast," a double meaning, as at face value it applies to Kong's infatuation with Anne, but deep down it applies to nature, the beauty, killing man's ambition, the beast.
It wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast.
That said, you can unlock a new scenario in which you take control of Jack again and pilot a plane as you shoot the other planes that are attacking Kong down. Eventually, he is saved and returned to Skull Island, where he lives as the king for the remainder of his days. King Kong the game sets out to create a sense that you are playing the movie, and I think in a lot of ways it succeeds in that. While I personally tend to prefer more gamey games, King Kong is certainly competent and achieves what it sets out to do with flying colors. If you're looking for a game to scratch that King Kong itch, this does a pretty good job of it. If I had to make one complaint, it would be that I wish you could play as Kong more throughout the game. But for a movie tie-in on the GameCube, it's a pretty solid experience. Hey everybody, I hope you liked that quick review of King Kong, the game from the movie made by Peter Jackson, and all that. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all so much. Tomorrow I will have a video up for Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, also on the GameCube. Hope you will stick around and watch that as well. Have a good one. Bye.